There comes a moment in every life, quiet, subtle yet powerful, when a single voice can alter the rhythm of your soul, not with noise, not with chaos, but with words, carved from truth, honed in fire, and delivered by those who have walked through storms with their heads held high. Welcome to the Storyteller, where echoes of wisdom become living stories, where ancient pain, modern courage, and eternal hope blend into a narrative that doesn't just speak to you, it becomes you. This is not sermon. This is not a lecture. This is a journey through voices, voices that never ask for applause, only that their message be remembered. And oh, how the world remembered. You see, greatness does not always wear a crown. Sometimes it wears a suit soaked in rain on the steps of Washington. Sometimes it's a trembling voice from a teenage dropout, now roaring in sold-out arenas. Sometimes it's a whisper from a woman who turned her trauma into a microphone for the broken. And sometimes it's a teacher, a preacher, a dreamer, a builder, a farmer, or an actor, each with one weapon more powerful than money, muscles, or machines. Their words. In the next few chapters, you will not just hear speeches. You will feel battles. You will see hearts cracked open. You will walk beside giants, not because of their height, but because of their depth. So lean in, close your outer world, and let the inner world awaken. Because tonight, we tell the tale of those whose voices didn't just move rooms. They moved nations. They moved generations. They moved you, even if you don't know it yet. This is Voices of Power, the story of words that moved a nation. And this is The Storyteller, where words are not just spoken, they are lived. Chapter 1, The Dream That Shook the World, inspired by Martin Luther King Jr. Before there was thunder in his voice, there was silence in his soul, a silence carved by injustice, whispers from his father's sermons, and the haunting question of a young boy. Why can't I play with them? The world didn't answer, but he did, born in a nation stitched with invisible walls. Martin was not raised in luxury, but in clarity. He knew what it meant to feel less, not because of what you did, but because of what they saw. But rather than let the fire of anger consume him, he let it refine him. He didn't pick up a gun. He picked up a pen. He didn't shout back with fists. He spoke back with truth. And one day, in the sweltering heat of Washington, before a sea of souls bruised by 1,000 betrayals, he stood not just as a man, but as a mirror to a country that claimed liberty, but had forgotten justice. He didn't begin with a scream. He began with a phrase that changed history. I have a dream, but this was not fantasy. This was prophecy. He didn't just dream for himself. He dreamed for millions, for every child told they were less, for every mother whose son never came home, for every voice silenced before it could speak. He spoke of hills and valleys, of crooked paths made straight, of a day when little white boys and little black girls would walk together, not with suspicion, but with shared joy. It wasn't just a speech. It was a storm in velvet, a hurricane dressed in hope, and though the words ended, the echo never did. But here's the truth no one tells you. King was not fearless. He was human. He cried in the dark. He questioned in silence. He walked knowing any step could be his last. And still, he walked, not be remembered, but to be useful, to be a bridge others could cross, even if he himself would fall before reaching the other side. And when the bullet came, it did not silence him. It only proved how powerful a man becomes when his life is louder than his death. We don't honor him because he spoke. We honor him because he dared to dream aloud. When dreaming out loud could get you killed, he made courage look calm. He made rebellion look holy. He made words look like weapons. In a war not fought on battlefields, but in hearts, he is not just a chapter in a book. He is the reason some of us get to write our own book. So when the world feels heavy, when your voice feels too small, when you're told, you don't belong here, remember the man who stood in front of giants and dared to say, let freedom ring. And somehow, through time, through chaos, through your screen right now, it still does. This is his story. And it's yours too. Chapter 2, Awaken the Giant Within, inspired by Tony Robbins. Before he became a giant to the world, he was a boy, hungry in more ways than one. Tony didn't grow up with silver spoons or safe fences. He grew up with slamming doors, unpaid bills, and the sound of grown-ups giving up on themselves. He watched his mother scream, not because she didn't care, but because the weight of living had become a monster of its own. He didn't get bedtime stories. He got reasons to run. But here's what made Tony different. He decided, early on, that his pain would not be his prison. It would be his fuel. One Thanksgiving, when the fridge was a museum of emptiness, a stranger showed up with food, a small gesture, but it shook Tony's world. Because sometimes all it takes is one act of unexpected kindness to flip the switch in someone's soul. That day, Tony didn't just eat. He made a vow. Someday, I'll be the one who knocks on someone else's door and reminds them that life hasn't forgotten them. Fast forward, he didn't become successful overnight. He became obsessed with answers, with psychology, with why some people suffer forever, while others rise with fire in their eyes. He studied the human brain like it held the blueprint to God. He pushed his body, his beliefs, and his boundaries. He spoke in hotel basements to 5 people sitting in folding chairs. But he roared like there were 5,000, because the size of the crowd never mattered to him, only the size of the breakthrough. Tony's message was not subtle. It was war paint. He didn't ask you to feel better. He dared you to feel everything, to confront the demons, to crush the excuses, to awaken the sleeping beast that life, fear, and failure had buried beneath your skin. It is in your moments of decision that your destiny is shaped. He didn't just say it. He lived it. He walked on fire, not to impress, but to prove what the human mind could do when trained, challenged, and freed. He taught people that life is not about resources. It's about resourcefulness. That your past is a story, not a sentence. That pain is feedback, not a full stop. Tony Robbins became the thunderclap before the breakthrough, the mirror that didn't flatter, but revealed, the voice that said, change is automatic, progress is not. His stage was a battlefield, but his enemy was never you. It was a version of you that settled. He stood in front of CEOs and soldiers, addicts and artists, and told them all the same thing. You are more than you think, but you must decide now who you will be, because transformation doesn't come with time. It comes with total immersion, a moment, a choice, a cut in the script of your life. And that's the power of Tony Robbins. He doesn't give you permission. He gives you a mirror and a match. Look in it, then light it up. So the next time your fear tells you you're stuck, the next time your comfort zone calls you home, remember this. Somewhere in a dark room, a boy once decided to fight his future into existence. And now, the world listens when he speaks, because he didn't awaken the giant. He became it. And maybe so can you, right here, right now, with the storyteller. Chapter 3, The Farmer Philosopher, inspired by Jim Rohn. He never shouted. He never needed to. His words didn't slap you awake. They sat beside you, like an old friend on a porch swing, sipping quiet wisdom from the cup of life itself. Jim Rohn wasn't flashy. He wore suits older than your ambition. But when he spoke, even time sat down to listen. You see, Jim was not born to greatness. He was born to possibility. A farm boy, simple tools, hard soil, and the kind of life that taught you real fast. That what you plant, you harvest. But here's where it gets interesting. Jim tried the path of just enough, worked hard, showed up, got paid. And then years passed. He looked up one day and realized, I'm broke, I'm behind, and I'm better than this. That was his real education, not in school, but in awakening. He found a mentor, Earl Schoaf, a man who asked him not what he wanted, but who he was becoming. Jim's life changed not through some dramatic crisis, but through a whisper. For things to change, you have to change. That one sentence hit like lightning across an open field. From that point on, Jim Rohn became something rare, a man who could explain greatness. Without glamour, without gimmicks. He didn't promise the stars. He handed you a seed and said, "Now grow something real." He spoke of disciplines, tiny choices, daily habits, and how the pain of discipline is always lighter than the pain of regret. He wasn't a motivator. He was a gardener of minds. He didn't hype, he taught. And slowly, the world listened. From back rooms to big stages, he told thousands that success is not magic. It's not luck. It's the predictable result of applied principles. Don't wish it were easier. Wish you were better. That wasn't cruelty. It was the truth no one else dared to say. Because Jim believed in you more than you believed in yourself. But he also believed you had to earn your belief. He gave you the formula. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Not just for money, but for meaning. Not just for position, but for character. And as the years passed, Jim became the voice behind other voices. Behind Tony Robbins. Behind thousands of speakers and leaders who never met him, but still quote him. Because Jim didn't aim to be remembered. He aimed to be useful. So when life feels chaotic, when you're scrolling through noise, looking for something real, remember the man who said, "Success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day." He didn't give you hype. He gave you a hammer to build something better inside yourself. He was a farmer. He was a philosopher. But above all, he was a mirror for those ready to look in and get to work. That's the legacy of Jim Rohn. And it lives right here on The Storyteller, Chapter 4. Hungry for greatness. Inspired by Les Brown. He wasn't born into privilege. Not even close. Les Brown entered this world labeled educable mentally retarded. A phrase heavy enough to chain a soul, but he refused a cage. From the start, his life was a battle, not against others, but against the voice inside that whispered, "You're not enough." He heard it everywhere, in school hallways, in quiet corners, even in his own reflection. But Les had a different kind of hunger, a hunger that gnawed deeper than any fear. In a tiny apartment, with nothing but an old radio playing voices of hope, he learned something crucial. It's not what's happened to you. It's what you do with what happened to you. He began to talk back to the doubt, not with anger, but with relentless faith. He looked in the mirror each day and said, "You gotta be hungry. Hungry for respect. Hungry for meaning. Hungry for life itself." Les didn't just want to survive. He wanted to thrive. He went from being homeless to one of the most electrifying voices on the planet. How? Because he believed in something rare, that no matter how deep the darkness, the fire inside could burn brighter. He taught millions that your past isn't a prison. It's a launch pad. He told us that success is not a secret club, reserved for a chosen few. It's a battlefield for anyone willing to be hungry enough to fight tooth and nail. You don't have to be great to get started, but you have to get started to be great. Les Brown's speeches feel like a drumbeat, urgent, raw, and unyielding. He challenges you. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. It may never come. His words slice through the fog of excuses, calling you to show up fully, even when your legs are shaking, even when your voice trembles, because greatness isn't born. It's forged in moments when you want to quit, but choose to keep going. Les Brown's story is a blazing torch for those lost in the wilderness of self-doubt. So when your hunger fades, when the road feels long, and the nights get cold, remember the man who refused to accept no as an answer. Remember the boy who didn't just survive, but roared back into life with a voice that shakes mountains. That's Les Brown. That's the hunger inside you waiting to be unleashed. And this is The Storyteller, Chapter 5, Breathe Success, inspired by Eric Thomas. Some people talk about success like it's a distant star, light years away and out of reach. But Eric Thomas knew different. He knew success is not a wish or a dream. It's a breath, a heartbeat, a decision you breathe into every moment. Eric's story began in the darkest shadows. Homeless, living in abandoned buildings, sleeping on floors cold enough to freeze hope itself. He was a high school dropout, a kid nobody thought would make it out. But here's the secret he learned. You don't need a silver spoon. You need a silver will. He woke up every day not because life was kind, but because he wanted it more than the pain. And he said to himself, when you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, then you will be successful. Those words aren't just speech. They are a call to arms. A reminder that success isn't something you find. It's something you fight for with every breath you take. Eric made it his mission to be the voice for those who feel lost, for those who think the world has turned its back. He teaches that pain is a choice, that you can let it destroy you, or you can let it fuel you. His speeches hit like thunder. Raw, unfiltered, electric. Everybody wants to be a beast, until it's time to do what real beasts do. He dares you to sacrifice, to grind when no one is watching, to stand up when you've been knocked down again and again. Eric's message is simple. Want it more than your excuses. Breathe your way to success. And every day, millions around the world wake up inspired because he reminded them success is not a mystery. It's a habit, a breath, a decision. So when your lungs feel tight, when the world seems heavy, remember Eric Thomas, the man who turned every breath into a battle cry. And if you think you're out of air, just breathe harder, because success isn't the breath you take now. Chapter 6, The Zig Ziglar Way. Inspired by Zig Ziglar. Some people shine with fireworks. Others glow like a steady lantern on a quiet night. Zig Ziglar was the latter. He didn't have the loudest voice in the room, but when he spoke, his words carried the weight of hope, honesty, and heart. Zig wasn't born into success. Raised in the humble surroundings of a rural home, he knew what it meant to start small, to face setbacks, to hear no more times than fingers on one hand. But instead of breaking, he built. His philosophy was simple. Success is not about luck. It's about starting. You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. Those words became a lifeline for millions who thought the mountain too high or the dream too distant. Zig understood the power of belief. Belief in yourself. Belief in the process. Belief that every failure was simply a step closer to victory. He taught that success is a staircase, built one step at a time, not with leaps or bounds, but with consistent effort. More than that, Zig championed the idea that attitude matters most. Your attitude, not your aptitude, will determine your altitude. He believed a positive outlook could turn storms into rainbows, and even the hardest days into lessons. Zig's life was a testament to perseverance. A salesman who turned rejection into fuel. A man who used humor and heart to teach the world that success and kindness could walk hand in hand. He spoke not to dazzle, but to uplift. His stories felt like sitting with a wise uncle, a man who believed in your potential, even when you doubted it yourself. So when you feel overwhelmed, when the road is long and the goal unclear, remember Zig Ziglar, the man who reminded us that greatness starts with a step, a simple decision to begin. And as long as you start, you are already on the way. This is the Zig Ziglar way. And it lives on right here on The Storyteller. Chapter 7, The Wounds That Became Wisdom, inspired by Oprah Winfrey. She wasn't born with a silver spoon, but with a storm in her eyes. Oprah's journey wasn't smooth. It was a winding road of trials, silence, and scars. Raised in poverty, faced with abuse and rejection, she carried wounds that could have shattered her spirit. But here's what made Oprah different. She chose to turn pain into power. Where others saw only brokenness, she found a well of strength. She learned early that life isn't about avoiding the storm. It's about learning to dance in the rain. Oprah didn't just heal herself. She used her wounds as a beacon for millions. Her voice became a sanctuary for the unheard, a bridge between pain and hope. She believed that every scar held a story worth telling. That vulnerability was not weakness, but the greatest form of courage. She famously said, Turn your wounds into wisdom. These words weren't just inspirational, they were revolutionary. Oprah taught us that success isn't just wealth or fame. It's the grace to rise after every fall, the courage to speak your truth, and the empathy to lift others as you climb. Through her talk shows, books, and speeches, she invited millions to join her in a collective healing, to find light in darkness and meaning in pain. Her story reminds us that your past doesn't define your future. Your wounds don't limit your wisdom. Instead, they can become your greatest gifts. So when life has bruised you, when the nights feel endless, remember Oprah Winfrey, a woman who took the darkest chapters of her life and wrote a story of hope that still echoes across the world. Her journey is a testament. You are not your pain. You are the wisdom born from it. And this truth lives here on The Storyteller. Chapter 8. Stay hungry. Stay foolish. Inspired by Steve Jobs. He wasn't born to follow the crowd. He was born to challenge it. Steve Jobs was not just a man with ideas. He was a man with a restless heart, a mind that refused to settle for good enough. From a garage filled with dreams and broken parts, he dared to imagine a world no one else could see. He dropped out of college, not because he was reckless, but because he trusted his curiosity more than convention. In his famous speech at Stanford, he shared a truth that echoed across generations. Stay hungry. Stay foolish. Those words weren't just advice. They were a call to rebellion, a challenge to keep the fire alive, to never become complacent, to always seek new paths, to embrace the unknown with open arms. Steve's journey was full of failures. He was fired from Apple, the company he co-founded. But instead of retreating, he built Pixar, changed the animation world, and then returned to Apple to revolutionize technology again. His life was a dance of creativity and courage, a testament that greatness is born not only from success, but from the grit to rise after every fall. He believed that every setback is an opportunity, a chance to reimagine yourself. Your time is limited, he warned. Don't waste it living someone else's life. Steve Jobs reminds us that innovation isn't just about gadgets. It's about daring to see differently. It's about staying curious. Even when the world tries to tell you to grow up, to play safe, to settle. So when you feel stuck, when the path seems narrow and dark, remember the man who told the world to stay hungry, to stay foolish, because it's that hunger and foolishness that keeps the soul alive, that pushes the limits, that writes history. This is a legacy of Steve Jobs, and it lives on right here on The Storyteller. Chapter 9, The Power of Vulnerability, inspired by Brené Brown. In a world that teaches us to armor up, to hide our cracks and polish our masks, there came a voice that dared to say, vulnerability is not weakness. It's our greatest measure of courage. Brené Brown's journey wasn't about collecting trophies. It was about collecting truths, raw, uncomfortable, and real. She studied shame, fear, and empathy, not from textbooks alone, but from the aching spaces inside every human heart. She discovered that vulnerability is the birthplace of connection, of love, of belonging, and yet it is also the place where we feel most exposed, most afraid. Breen teaches us that to be truly brave, we must first be truly open, to let others see us as we are, flawed, uncertain, and beautiful, because hiding doesn't protect us. It isolates us. And courage? Courage is stepping into the arena, with your heart on your sleeve, ready to be seen. Her words shake the foundations of what we think strength is. Strength is not the absence of fear. It is choosing to show up again and again, even when the outcome is unknown. Breen's message is a gift to anyone who's ever felt not enough, not worthy, not whole. She tells us, owning our story can be hard, but not owning it is worse. Through her research and storytelling, she reveals that vulnerability fuels innovation, creativity, and growth. It's the spark behind every breakthrough, the thread that weaves us all together. So when you're tempted to hide, when fear tells you to shut down, remember Brené Brown. Remember that the greatest power you have is the power to be authentically you. And this truth lives here, with every story told, on The Storyteller. Chapter 10, Faith First, Fame Later. Inspired by Denzel Washington. Before the spotlight found him, before the applause filled arenas, there was a quiet man, guided by a faith deeper than fame. Denzel Washington's journey is not just one of talent, but of discipline, purpose, and belief. A journey where faith is the compass, and fame is only a destination, not the path. He grew up in a world that could easily have swallowed him whole, in neighborhoods where dreams often died young, where temptations lurked like shadows waiting to pounce. But Denzel chose a different way. He understood early that success without purpose is empty, that talent without integrity is hollow. Put God first in everything you do, he said, and the rest will follow. Denzel's speeches echo with stories of struggle and grace. He talks about failing forward, about how setbacks are lessons wrapped in disguise, and how humility keeps the soul anchored. He reminds us that greatness is not measured by awards or wealth, but by the strength of your character, by how you uplift those around you, and by the faith you hold when the lights go out. He shares a simple truth. At the end of the day, it's not what you have or even what you've accomplished. It's about who you've lifted up, who you've made better. Denzel Washington stands as a living testament that when you put faith first, fame comes later. That the real victories are won quietly, in moments unseen, in prayers whispered in the dark, in promises kept to yourself. So when you feel lost in the noise, when the chase for recognition distracts you, remember the man who walks with humility, who carries faith as his armor, and whose greatness comes from serving, not being served. That is the legacy of Denzel Washington. You've just walked through the lives of giants, men and women who refuse to be ordinary, who use their voices not just to speak, but to ignite. Each story a flame, each lesson a torch handed down through time. From Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream that still rings in our hearts, to Tony Robbins' call to awaken the power sleeping inside you. From Jim Rohn's quiet wisdom about discipline, to Les Brown's fierce hunger for greatness. From Eric Thomas's battle cry that success is breath itself, to Zig Ziglar's timeless reminder to start no matter what. From Oprah's wounds transformed into wisdom, to Steve Jobs' dare to stay hungry and foolish. From Brené Brown's fearless embrace of vulnerability, to Denzel Washington's faith-driven path to true greatness. What can you learn from these voices? That greatness is not given, it's earned. That your past doesn't define your future, your choices do. That courage comes in many forms, sometimes loud, sometimes quiet, but always real. That success without purpose is hollow, and faith without action is incomplete. So now, the question is not who they were, but who you will become. Will you let their stories be echoes in the wind? Or will you carry their fire forward? Will you speak your truth? Even when it's hard, will you keep moving? Even when the path is unclear? Here, on The Storyteller, we believe you have that power, because every voice matters, every story counts, and every moment is a chance to change everything. If these stories moved you, if they spark something inside, subscribe to The Storyteller. Join a community where words become actions and stories become legacies. Hit the bell so you never miss the next voice waiting to change your life. Remember, your story is just beginning, and we'll be here telling it with you. Thank you for listening. Until next time, stay inspired, stay brave, and keep telling your story.